Welcome back to Lakers News Fan Report, your ultimate destination for everything Lakers basketball. This is where you get the real insight, the strategic breakdowns, and the honest analysis about our beloved purple and gold. I'm here to bring you the latest developments, and trust me, what's happening right now with our roster is creating conversations that every Lakers fan needs to be part of. Make sure you're subscribed, because over the coming days and week, we're going to be diving deep into every decision, every move, and every strategic calculation that shapes the future of this franchise. Sometimes in professional basketball, success creates the most complicated problems. You'd think that when a player steps up and exceeds expectations, when someone rises to the occasion and delivers performances that help your team win games, the path forward would be crystal clear. But the NBA doesn't work. The NBA is about rotations, chemistry, fitting pieces together in ways that maximize your championship potential. And right now, the Los Angeles Lakers find themselves in exactly that kind of complicated situation, one that involves a 24-year-old forward who's been absolutely lighting it up over the week, and one that raises serious questions about what happens next. Let me take you back to December 30th. The Lakers faced the Detroit Pistons, and we were dealing with an injury to Rui Hachimura, a calf issue that would sideline one of our key rotation players. J.J. Redick had to make adjustments, had to insert someone into the starting lineup who could provide production, defense, and energy. The choice was Jake Laravia, our first-year Laker who'd been working his way into the rotation throughout the season. That first game honestly wasn't pretty. 9 points on 3 of 9 shooting in a loss to the kind of performance that makes you wonder if the opportunity might be too big, if the moment might be overwhelming for a young player still finding his footing in a Lakers uniform. But here's where the story gets interesting, where we start to see the kind of character and talent that makes you reevaluate everything you thought you knew about a player's ceiling. Because what happened next wasn't just improvement, it was an explosion. January 2nd against the Memphis Grizzlies, Laravia put up 21 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, and 2 steals in a 128-121 victory. Then January 4th, back against Memphis, he followed it up with 26 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists in another late win. Back-to-back 20-plus point game, the kind of performances that don't just contribute to victories, they're essential to securing them. Now, before I go any further, I need you to understand the context of these numbers, because context is everything. We're not talking about garbage production or empty stat blowout. We're talking about meaningful minutes in competitive game against a Grizzlies team that's fighting for playoff position. We're talking about a player who's not just scoring but doing it efficiently, mixing his offensive production with legitimate defensive contributions, showing versatility that every modern NBA team desperately needs. The three-point shooting is particularly noteworthy, and this is where the statistical trend becomes impossible to ignore. Throughout November and December, Laravia struggled from beyond the arc, shooting below 30% from three. Those are numbers that get pulled from rotations, bench, while coaches search for more options. But something clicked in January. 7 of 16 from three-point range. That's 43.8% from deep. That's not luck. That's not a small sample size fluke. That's a player who's figured something out, who's found his rhythm, who's starting to look like the kind of floor spacing forward that every championship contender needs in their rotation. And here's what makes this even more significant. Laravia isn't just standing in the corner waiting for kick-out passes, moving without the ball. He's attacking close out. He's making quick decisions with the basketball. The offensive awareness, the way he's reading fence, standing, when to shoot, when to drive, that's advanced players first, the new organization. These are the kinds of skill typical years, and he's displaying them right when the Lakers need them. The defensive side of his game deserves equal attention, because this really separates role players from impact players. Anyone can get hot shooting for a couple of games, but can you defend multiple positions? Can you rotate? Can you communicate with your teammates and understand defensive schemes at NBA? Laravia is doing all of that. His defensive presence is noticeable. His ability to guard different types of players has given J.J. Redick flexibility with his rotations, and his effort level on that end of the floor has been exactly what you want to see from someone trying to earn a permanent place in your rotation. So we've established Jake Laravia has been phenomenal. We've established that he's exceeded expectations, proven he can produce at a high level in the starting lineup. We've established that his shooting has improved dramatically, that his defense is legitimate, and that he's contributing to Lakers victories in meaningful ways. This should be the develop every depth. But here's where we need to talk about the complicated reality facing this organization, the difficult decisions that are rapidly approaching, and the reason why, despite all this success, Jake Laravia's situation with the Lakers is far from secure. Rui Hachimura is going to return from his calf injury. That's not speculation, that's fact. And when Rui returns, J.J. Redick is going to have to make a decision about his starting lineup. Rui Hachimura was a starter before he got injured. It's been a crucial part of what the Lakers have built this season, providing scoring, rebound, and veteran presence in that starting forward spot. The organization invested in Rui, both financially and strategic. He's not someone you just move to the bench because another player had a good week. This creates a genuine dilemma, one that's going to force some difficult conversations in the Lakers. Let me lay out the scenario, because understanding what could happen is essential for every Lakers fan who's invested in where this team is headed. Scenario 1, Rui comes back healthy. He returns to the starting, and Laravia goes back to a bench role. This is probably the most straightforward path, the one that maintains status existed before Rui's injury. Laravia proved he can contribute to bench, and now he's shown he can produce even more when given expanded opportunity. Makes him a valuable rotation, someone you can deploy in different situations depending on matchup. But here's the problem with one, and this is where it gets comfortable. Jake Laravia just demonstrated that he might be playing too well, except reduced role. He's 24 years old. He's in his prime developmental years, and he just proved he can be a starting caliber player in the NBA. Players in that situation want minutes. They want opportunity. They want to continue showcasing what can do. Going back to the bench, starting lineup, psychological challenge. It can create resentment. It can affect performance, and it can lead to a player requesting changes or the organization deciding they need to make a move to keep everyone satisfied. Scenario 2, J.J. Redick makes the bold decision to keep Laravia in the starting lineup when Rui returns, moving Rui to a bench role, or potentially adjusting the rotation in other ways. This would be a merit-based decision, rewarding the player who's performing at the highest level now. But it comes with massive complications. Rui Hachimura has proven himself over a longer period of time. He's got a relationship with the core players on this team, and benching him after an injury could damage morale and create chemistry. Plus, you've got contract considerations, you've got ego management, you've got all the delicate interpersonal dynamics that exist in every NBA locker room. Scenario 3, and this is where we need to talk honestly about possibilities that Lakers fans might not want to consider. The organization decides to explore trade options involving one of these forwards. If you've got two players who both deserve significant minutes, same position, and you're trying to maximize your championship window with LeBron James and Anthony Davis in their current stages of career, you might decide that consolidating assets makes more sense, trying to balance everyone's minutes and keep every. This doesn't mean it's the right move, but it's absolutely a conversation that happens in NBA front office when roster dynamics get complex. Now let me be very clear about something before anyone panics or jumps to conclusions. I'm not reporting that Jake Laravia is being traded. I'm not saying the Lakers have made any decisions about his future. What I am saying is that his recent success, as positive as it's been for team performance, has created a situation that requires strategic thinking and difficult choices. And in the NBA, when situations like this arise, teams explore all their options. They think about roster, they think of long-term fit, they think about maximizing value, and sometimes those thought processes lead to moves that's fan. Think about it from the Lakers' organizational perspective. You've got LeBron James still performing at an elite level, getting older. You've got Anthony Davis in his prime and healthy, which hasn't always been guaranteed. You've got a roster that's good enough to compete, but might need one more significant piece to really be considered a championship favorite. If Jake Laravia's value is at an all-time high right now, after these performances, other teams are suddenly calling and expressing interest. If you could package him in a deal that brings back a player who addresses a more pressing need, do you at least have that conversation? I think you do. I think you'd be negligent not to explore what's. The three-point shooting improvement is particularly relevant to his trade value because that's the skill that translates most directly to what other teams need. Every team in the NBA is looking for forwards who can space the floor score, who can knock down open threes, who can play multiple positions offensively. Laravia just demonstrated that he's developed into exactly that kind of player. His recent stretch has shown other organizations that he's not just an end-of-bench rotation guy. He's someone who could contribute to a playoff team right now. That changes his market value significantly, and it changes the calculus for the Lakers when they're evaluating their options. Let me also address the elephant room that every Lakers fan is thinking about. Why would you even consider moving a young player who's playing well? It seems counterintuitive, maybe even foolish, but championship windows are fragile, especially when we've got aging superstars. The Lakers aren't in a position to develop young talent over multiple seasons and hope everything comes eventually. We're in win-now mode, and that means every decision has to be evaluated through the lens of immediate championship contention. If moving Laravia, as painful as it might be, to lose a player who's showing real promise brings back someone who helps us more in our pursuit of Banner 18, then you have to seriously consider it. The defensive versatility he's shown is actually another factor that could make him attractive in trade scenarios. Teams that are built around offensive superstars but struggling defensively would love to add a forward who can guard multiple positions and knock down threes. That's a premium skill set in today's NBA, and it's exactly the kind of profile that generates significant trade-in. Laravia has essentially played himself into a position where his value extends beyond just the Lakers, and that creates both opportunities and complications for our organization. Now, I want to shift gears, talk about what Laravia staying with the Lakers long-term could look like, because that's absolutely still a viable and maybe even likely outcome. Let's say J.J. Redick decides to manage this by using a more fluid rotation where both Rui and Laravia get significant minutes, just not necessarily always as starters. That's a legitimate coaching strategy that maximizes depth and keeps everyone engaged. You could have matchup-based starting lineups. Laravia starts against teams mobile, perimeter-oriented forwards, and Rui starts against teams with more traditional physical power forward. That kind of flexibility can be a strength, not a weakness. The Lakers could also decide that having two productive forwards competing for minutes creates positive internal competition that makes both players better. Iron sharpens iron, as the saying goes. When you know you've got someone behind you who's capable of taking your spot, it forces you to bring your best every single night. That kind of competitive environment, managed properly, can elevate an entire team's performance level. Maybe the answer isn't choosing between Rui and Laravia. Maybe it's figuring out how to leverage both of them in ways that maximize what each does best. There's also the injury consideration that can't be ignored in NBA roster management. Rui just missed time with a calf injury. LeBron is managing his minutes carefully as he ages. Anthony Davis, great as he is, has had injury issues throughout his career. Having depth at the forward positions isn't just nice to have. It's essential for navigating an 82-game season plus playoff. Laravia proving he can step up and produce when called upon might be more valuable than any trade return we could get for him, simply because it provides assurance against the inevitable injuries and rest days that every team faces. The broader strategic question the Lakers need to answer is this: what type of team are we building, and what types of players fit that vision? If we're building a team that wants to play fast, space the floor, and leverage LeBron and AD's unique talents, then having multiple forwards who can move without the ball and defend is exactly what you... Laravia fits that profile. If we're building a team that wants to be more physical, dominate the glass, grind out wins in the half-court, maybe we prioritize different... These philosophical questions about team identity drive roster decisions more than people realize. Let me bring this back to the immediate situation, because that's what matters most for Lakers fans watching this video right now. Rui Hachimura is going to return from injury soon. When he does, J.J. Redick will have to make a decision about rotation. That decision will tell us a lot about how the organization values Jake Laravia's recent performance, how they view his long-term fit with the team, and whether they're willing to make bold, merit-based choices even when it creates complicated roster dynamics. I'm genuinely curious to see what happens, and I think every Lakers fan should be paying close attention to this situation as it unfolds. The possibility that despite playing well, Laravia could find himself out of the rotation or even out of Los Angeles entirely. That's the uncomfortable reality of NBA roster management. Success doesn't always guarantee security, especially when you're competing with other talented players for limited minutes. And while I hope the Lakers find a way to keep Laravia and integrate him into our long-term plans, I also recognize this organization has to make decisions championship, not sentimentality about recent. Here's what I'm watching for this in development. First, how does J.J. Redick handle the first few games after Rui returns? Does he immediately go back to Rui in the starting lineup, or does he try to ride Laravia's hot hand a little longer? Second, what kind of trade activity happens around the league leading up to the deadline, teams calling up, and if so, what kind of return are they on? Third, how does Laravia himself respond to whatever role he's given? Does he continue producing at a high level, even if his minutes decrease, or does his performance slip, faced with uncertainty about his future? The optimistic, and I'm always going to lean optimistic, comes to the Lakers, is that this is actually a good problem to have. This is your Lakers community, and I want you to be part of every conversation we're having about the future of this franchise. The Jake Laravia situation is complicated, it's fascinating, and it's going to be resolved one way or another very soon. Whether he stays in the rotation, moves to the bench, or even gets traded, what matters most is that the Lakers make decisions that maximize our championship potential. That's what we all want. That's what we all expect. And that's what I believe this organization is committed to delivering. Stay locked into Lakers News Fan Report for every update as this situation develops. Let's go, Lakers.